Hello, my name is Carl Hoff, and I'd like to introduce the latest incarnation of the current puzzle that I am working on. However, before I get to that, let me talk about a few of the steps that are required to understand what this puzzle is. So this is a 2x2, this is a 3x3, and the question is what is that? So let's try to understand what we need to do to get from a 2x2 to a 3x3 first. A 2x2 on each axis has two layers of rotation, this face and this face. However, only one of those two faces is independent of the other. The other face is considered a dependent layer of rotation. And by that I mean if we consider this the independent rotation, then a rotation of this face, say that rotation for example, can be created through a rotation of the independent face and a global rotation of the entire puzzle. So those two rotations are not independent of one another. So to make a 3x3, what we want to do is we want to start with a 2x2 and make both faces independent of one another. So to do that, we blow the puzzle up and create space between the 8 corners. So those 8 corners become the 8 corners of a 3x3. This empty space is now filled with pieces, and the union of these 3 new dependent layers of rotation contain all the new pieces. The new pieces being face centers, which we don't have in the 2x2, edges, which we don't have on the 2x2, and a core, which in principle we do not have on the 2x2. So this gives us the 3x3. This layer is now independent, as is this one. The dependent layer is now the slice layer. So say if I want to have the rotation of the slice layer down in the front, I can create that by rotating the faces on that axis and then a global rotation of the entire puzzle. So that shows you that that is now the dependent layer. So that's what we do to create a 3x3 from a 2x2. What do we get if we apply that same process to the 3x3? Well, we end up with this puzzle. So this can be viewed as a 4x4 of sorts. We blow all the pieces up so there's now space between all the pieces, and we fill that space with new pieces. So this here is the 3x3 face, this is the 3x3 face, and this here is the 3x3 slice, right there in the middle. However, they're now, all 3 layers are independent. This is independent, this is independent, and this is independent. To get that independence, we had to add a new layer. That new layer is the union of those 2 slices. They look like separate slices, but they're not. They're actually conjoined. To rotate them, and you can see that those 2 layers are connected to each other. So they're not independent, or they're not separate layers. They are the dependent layer in this puzzle. So, for example, if I rotate this layer back, that layer back, and that layer back, and do a global rotation of the entire puzzle, then you see what a rotation of that dependent layer looks like. Let's go back to the solid state. So I'll argue that this here is a 4x4. What do we expect to find in a 4x4? A 4x4 should have 3 orthogonal axes of rotation. This does, here, here, and here. We expect a 4x4 to have 3 independent layers of rotation for each axis of rotation. This has it. This face, and the central slice layer. It also has 1 dependent layer of rotation per axis, the union of those 2 layers. But let's go back to a property that the 3x3 inherited from the 2x2. All the pieces present in the 2x2 are also present in the 3x3. So these 8 corners are now these 8 corners. We just added pieces to a previously existing puzzle. This here also has that property. All the pieces present in the 3x3 are present here in this 4x4. The 8 corners are these 8 corners. These 12 edges are the edges, central edges on this puzzle. And the core, which you can't see, the 27th cubie there in the center, is actually present on this puzzle and stickered. It's a little Pac-Man shaped piece there in the very center, that's one of the tiles on that core, and you can see it's tiled on all the faces. So that core is stickered on all its faces. However, that core doesn't behave like the core in this puzzle. Here, that core is always stationary. It never turns with any of the independent layers of rotation. In this puzzle, that core, the one that's part of the original 3x3, now does turn. That core is rotating with this layer. It's no longer a fixed piece. So when we went from the 2x2 to the 3x3, we created these new dependent layers, and the intersection of all those was the core there in the center. Well, that's where the new core comes from here as well. The intersection of this slice layer with those that slice layer and this slice layer, which are the three new dependent layers of rotation, those three layers all intersect and form a new core that surrounds the original core. That new core is actually the union of what appear to be the 3x3 corners there on the inside. I previously presented a video of just the core of this puzzle, and I'll provide a link in the description to that video. You can get a better shot of the video, a better view of the core. But those 8 corners on the inside behave as a new core that never rotates. And so what else do we expect to find in a 4x4? Well, we got the orthogonal axes of rotation, we got the 3 independent layers of rotation on each axis. Another property we'd like to have is we'd like to have 64 different pieces across a number of different piece types. Do we have 64 pieces in this puzzle? Well, if you look at an actual 4x4, you don't actually see 64 piece types because most of them don't allow you to play with the 2x2 in the center. So you're missing 8 of them. So instead of seeing 64, you're usually seeing 56 pieces. However, in this puzzle, you do have actually 64 piece types, or not piece types, but 64 pieces. And each one of them is super sticker to give it a proper position and orientation in the solid state. So let's run through the breakdown of those pieces. On the inside, we have what appears to be a 3x3. However, that's not really a 3x3. It's a circle slice turn only 3x3. So all the corners behave as a single part. So those corners behave and form the new core. In the very center, you have the old core. So you've got 2 cores in the middle of this puzzle. Also, the opposite faces on that inner 3x3 are joined. There's no way to separate them. They behave as a single part. And opposite faces, when they join, become a bifloor. So those are 3 bifloors on the inside of this thing that's part of that set that's composed of opposite face pairs. So you got that opposite face pair, this opposite face pair, and this opposite face pair form one complete set of bifloors. There's 3 of those. And what else we have in there? Well, we have the original, what appear to be 3x3 edges on the inside. Those are also conjoined. So all the edges in each plane, so the 4 in this plane, the 4 in this plane, and the 4 in this plane, each set of those 4 is conjoined into a single bifloor. So you've got another set of 3 bifloors on the inside. So on the inside, you've got 2 sets of 3 bifloors each, and you've got 2 cores. So there's 8 pieces on the inside. On the outside, what do we have? On the outside, we have the original 3x3 corners, we have the original 3x3 edges, and we have the original 3x3 faces. But in addition to that, we now have new edges. These 2 wings can never be separated, so they behave as a new edge. So you've got another set of 12 edges. These 4 X centers on a given face are now joined and behave as a new face center. So you got another 6 faces on this puzzle as well. And the only piece type that we haven't accounted for are what we would call T-centers on a 5x5. However, on this puzzle, these opposite T-centers are merged into a single piece type, So they no longer have the proper symmetry to refer to as T-centers. They become what are known as tri-walls, and they come in sets of 12. So there's 12 tri-walls in this puzzle. So you've got 12 tri-walls, you've got 2 sets of 12 edges each, you've got 2 sets of 6 faces each, and you've got 1 set of 8 corners on the outside. You add that to the 8 pieces we found on the inside, and you've got 64 pieces. So I'd argue this is a 4x4. Another thing I wanted to point out is what's the difference between the old faces and the new faces. Well, the new faces are relative to the new core, which never turns with the puzzle because you're typically turning the independent layers. If you think of the dependent layers as not the layers you're rotating, that core, that new core never turns, and if you keep that core fixed, the new face center only rotates with this face. The old face, which is a 3x3, well, since you're turning the slice layer now, the old face moves now, just like the core did. That new face, so the core goes over there. So if I turn the yellow face, I'm turning a different 3x3 face. So that's where the new distinction there comes from between the different faces and cores and so forth. That's probably enough talking for a while here. Let me show you some more turning. Puzzle turns very well. It's also quite heavy, or relatively heavy compared to most twisting puzzles. So there's enough mass there to keep its rotation going for a while. Not quite as much mass in a single layer, so they don't quite rotate as smoothly if I'm trying to turn a face by itself. But things do turn very well. You've got the slice layer rotation as well. Let me show you that. So there is the slice layer rotating. And let me go back to solved and I'll show you a different one. So there is a different slice layer rotating. And come back to solved. And then again to show you how the what appear to be 2 dependent slices are actually a single slice, is I can show you and try to hold that fixed. So there you go. And this there, I think I can't hold both faces. Don't have enough fingers. So, go back to solve. That is the other 4x4x4. It's actually a multi 4x4x4. Thank you for watching.